Hi everyone, these are just my thoughts about the market ahead. What can we expect? Just looking at some price action and kind of getting my thoughts down in video format. Sometimes on paper, but I actually find these videos really helpful for myself more than anything. So yeah, kind of recapping, I suppose, what we thought about last week and what we thought potentially might happen. So this is obviously post-election kind of stuff up here. Big gap up from more I guess post-election relief rather than maybe a bit of Trump positive for economy mixed in with that. But anything that jumps up kind of so far, especially coming up to a key kind of price level of 600, because if you remember, I think we had some resistance around the 500 level as well, if I recall. Sometimes it takes the market a little while just to digest some bits around that. So I think it's probably around there, isn't it? So it sometimes takes a little while to get there. Um, so this massive gap up, and we can see that is being pushed down here, is being pushed down here. If you're a buyer, you're obviously going to be taking profits here. So I don't necessarily, I suppose, see these as sellers coming into, oh, the market is overbought. Let's get in there and smash this down. It's probably a mix of mostly buyers boycott more than anything. So yeah, once we kind of have that, we know that we're just looking for support. So we're thinking about where is the support going to form. So my first inkling was going to be probably where the anchored VWAP was to that election, but yeah, it wasn't a strong point of resistance, I don't think. So the key ones that I had set here were kind of in red, which was the support line across the candle in here and just to the bottom one in here, because we don't want the market to go into the gap, basically, because once we're into the gap, we'll potentially go a bit lower. So we may even hit the AVWAP anchored to the start of the quarter, because we don't want too much of an aggressive pullback, especially down to the 50 SMA and these kind of support lines here. But even if it did, it'd be a bit of a warning sign, to be honest, but there's nothing driving this uh, kind of down, really. It's just like we said, that boycott from the sellers. So we thought the support might form. So if we could, I guess, move into a 15-minute kind of chart. So as soon as it went down like this, it's okay for it to dip down below it. I think that's okay. So it dipped down below, but importantly, it closed above that line. Let's just zoom in a bit, actually, and just to zoom in. So yeah, so it obviously dipped below that line when it went into it. God, I even wasn't about. So yeah, so it dipped into lower, but importantly, it kind of closed either above it or just on it. So this is the one to get into the gap, basically. So we've got a lot of support here. We've got the 15 EMA, we've got the anchored VWAP down to this one here. We've got a lot of stuff going on, but the key one, I guess, would be that into the gap sort of trade. So what do we get from that the next day? Do we keep going lower down to these levels with good volume? No. So that high candle there, high volume candle, could be people, taking profits, potentially short ones in here taking profits, um, and people adding to buying the dip as well. Basically, I know I would be. That's what I was looking for to get into stocks. I was looking for a dip and then support to form. So that's not enough support for me. So I wanted to see what would happen and kind of retest it. I don't know what my note was from that date. So yeah, so great pullbacks or great start. No pullbacks thus far. I want to see what happens at the retest. So I was probably looking at the 15-minute chart. So I just wanted to see what would a pullback look like. So yeah, we seem to have found support along that AVWAP line, but it also could be I guess this from these candles here. But it's not enough. Basically, I'm not seeing enough to be like, yep, I can start going long on options, because like we see, sometimes things can go up and they can go down, up, down, up, down. So one candle is just not enough. I want to see what happens next. So what does happen next? So a gap down, but importantly, it was a gap down right to that exact same level. So as a thesis here, I think I was actually out for most of this day, but my thinking was, if we gap below it, I would expect to see that kind of ping back, because again, I just don't see where there's no news, nothing driving anything here in particular. So yeah, I think Pete mentioned this in his video, but it was very much like a snap gap down right onto that support level, like an elastic band. We're probably going to snap back the other direction, especially when buyers are looking to buy those dips, and that's what happened. So they came back, and yeah, it was a pretty bullish day overall. And yeah, but again, not. I'm still. I don't think I was still long here either on Tuesday. But same thing again. Tries to whack it down. There's stuff going on, I'm sure, with what Trump is saying, with tariffs, with Iran, those sorts of things, Israel, those sorts of bits. I'm sure can influence bits, even though I think we're pricing some of those components in. Maybe not the Trump stuff yet, but yeah. But this is kind of where I'm starting to see is like I feel like we're starting to find support here. This is a good sign. I like this. This is good, and this is the day where I think everything kind of came to fruition. About we're pinging off and we're hitting our way through these lines. We close definitively above it, and yeah, that's when we can start going long into our next picks, or at least have some starting positions, so we can look at those starting positions as well. But yeah, so obviously the key real level again is getting back up to that 600. But I was really happy to see that support formed here. So I've started taking some initial positions for swing positions. So what we can expect, especially before end of year, because we have some seasonal bullishness, is will we look to see that 600 challenged again, and will we break through it this time? We obviously have this kind of ascending trend line here, which is not as important. I think the 600 level is the key bit that we want to break through and stay with. So I've taken initial starting positions here. I like this. I want to see keep going and get to 600. Maybe we'll chalk along like this for a little bit, but eventually we want to see a chalk along, maybe a small dip like I've already had potentially, or something similar, but then I want to see bash, break through it. I want to see higher lows, and then eventually I want to see us kind of break through that sort of level. And once it starts breaking through, then I'm interested in taking more positions. But I guess just thinking about and looking at what can we expect next week. I know this week as well, on Thursday, I can't remember if it was after the close on Thursday or after the close on Wednesday, but obviously Nvidia was one that everyone was waiting for, because it's almost, as always, is just a giant black hole in terms of its gravitational pull on the market. But expectations around Nvidia are always really high, but it seems, I would give it, personally, I wouldn't be touching it for a while, but its reactions seem okay. Expectations were high, and it was able to kind of hold those expectations. We didn't see a huge gap down. We saw a small move down, but it wasn't exactly mind moving. So in the end, it's probably a positive kind of looking earnings. It's kind of the last thing we were holding our breath for, I suppose, to be like, is there anything that's going to shake us out of maybe moving towards 600? Maybe a shock one from Nvidia, AI slowdown, etc. But I don't think that was ever really that likely. But you never know. But that's why I don't really trade it, or we're kind of waiting for that for some areas. But yeah, that was the last big one this week. Before we touch on that kind of events, there are a couple more earnings, but nothing here that's going to move the market. But something I'll be keeping an eye on, because I know I was interested maybe in Crowd, I think, a while back, taking a position. So its earnings are finally happening, but be wary of those. And then just seeing the key events for the week. Is there anything that's going to shake our, I guess, attack on that 600 level? So we've got consumer confidence bits with no kind of new homes, but important ones I'm looking out for are unemployment claims, obviously our prelim GDP, but mainly I'm looking for the FOMC meetings on Wednesday. But to be honest, inflation has been going down, and we are seeing a more dovish Fed, which I think is obviously quite positive. So, all in all, things are looking okay. Earnings season has gone by; it's been pretty positive across the board. Um, Nothing about the US elections. I think the stuff with Trump is always going to shake the market like a tree, especially stuff around tariffs, and maybe some loose fruits will fall off that tree. But that's my overall thinking on the market. Might do a separate video for what positions I have on. And that's the summary really, is to see how we challenge this 600 level here, and can we break through that, or are we going to hit it again and maybe tumble back down? But if we do, is it going to be less of a tumble and more of a short stop before we go breaking out further? That's what I hope for, but we will plan accordingly for both scenarios and see what happens and evaluate when we get near and onto that 600 level.